Greetings everyone, welcome to this new build guide. I'm gonna do the one exalted build guide on something that is very popular this league. It's the cost on crit Ice Nova Frostbolt builds. It is extremely good at clear speed, and obviously when you upgrade it, which you can obviously accumulate a lot of currency with this build, and you want to aim for the Cospri Malices. But those cost 4 exalted, so this build will be great with just a low budget to build up for those insane upgrades that will just kill bosses in an instant and clear maps at the highest speed that this game can handle. So this one does not only is very cheap to begin with, it's also gonna end you up at the stage where every content in this game is just gonna fall over in front of you. And you're gonna do it fast and easy. It's only a one button build, and you can see here tier 16 gameplay here in the background. It's not the best at bossing right now, but it can be easily fixed with a little bit more currency investment. Obviously these guides are intended for beginners, so you can just skip ahead wherever you need the extra help, and the timestamps will be in the beginning of the video, so just check that out and see where you need to be helped a little bit extra. So my premise of all these one exalted build guides is by the old saying, give a man a fish and feed him for a day, or teach a man how to fish and feed him for a lifetime. Hopefully you can recreate this and make an even more awesome build guide than I have in the future, and you can help me. Thank you for watching and enjoy the guide. For the important stats, I'm using two websites here to my disposal. It's the official PoE trade site and also PoE Database. And I use this when you click mods up here, and you can get all the different weapons, jewelry, whatever, body armor, whatever you need. And you can see what kind of affixes. So we know that they can have free, let's see here if we can click body armor. We know that body armor can have, or any item right now, can have free prefixes and free suffixes. So prefixes here on the left and the suffixes here on the right. I always make a search here for empty suffix. The reason for that is because suffixes are normally more important when you want to do the crafting in the end. So you use your crafting bench to fill in any gaps, specifically on resistance. So that gets me to what kind of stats are we actually looking for. The main stats for any cost on crit build is gonna be two stats, and it's gonna be critical strike chance for your attack and accuracy with your attack. So you want to hit 100% with this. Without that, your let's say your accuracy is not 100%. That means your cycling and your cyclone is not gonna hit all the time, which means that it's not gonna cost on crit, which means that your Ice Nova and Frostbolts are not gonna proc, and that means a lot of damage lost. That means your spells are not even gonna be activated. The same with crit. If you don't have enough crit, it does not matter if you proc it, because it needs to cost on crit. So it needs the accuracy and the critical strike at 100% for it to have the maximum effect, or at least close to it. Our accuracy problems is 100% because we have a specific amulet together with the flesh and stone. It creates 100%, so we do not need to worry about accuracy on our gear, which is great for this build, especially if you want to do the budget version. Even when you scale it to the end version, I still prefer the fire version over the cold version of this build. But we'll talk about that later. For crit, there's a bunch of different sources we can get. So obviously we need to have a lot on our build here that actually synergize with our critical strike, and you can go through these affixes. I did a very simple way of dealing with all of these things, like a little bit here and there, easy to get, no special pieces or anything like that that you actually need to filter through and would be too complicated for beginner players. So I did it as simple as possible. There's better ways of doing it, I know, but I just wanted to make all of this as simple as possible. So otherwise, we want the life on every piece. Try to get at least tier 3. So if you can see here, there for body armor, tier 3 would be this one because it's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Try to get that on every single piece we can. Because life is essential, because we have a lot of jewel sockets which we can scale our percentage increased life, so that synergizes very well. So if you have a lot of flat life and a lot of percentage life, those are gonna combine into a large health pool, and I have about over 6,000 effective health pool in then, so very good. And of course we want resistances, so every gear piece you don't, because we have so many rare pieces, we do not need too much resistance and everything. You can also, every time I'm doing one of these searches, I write in suffix here and I click empty suffix. So if I want life on something, and then I write 70 here, so we can write in body armor, for example, and resistance, I do total resistance, or I click in total resistance here because it includes chaos resistance also, which might be a bonus for you, because chaos damage is quite harsh on some of these. And we write in 60, for example. This is very low numbers, and as you can see, obviously 1 alk and so on. But we would need a 6 link on this one. Then we would need to write a 6 here and go. And all of a sudden, you're gonna see this 20 chaos. Still a good one. And make sure you have the right colors and everything for each item, because you're gonna need to socket in things. And if you have a lot of red gems, for example, you need to put in, obviously you do not want ES gear. But this one, I think we could make this work. It would probably be better to pick up this one because it has energy shield and armor, which means it's gonna be easier to fill in those blue sockets. But you have to look at the colors, and the same thing go for gloves. But I know gloves are a little bit harder on this, so I would go a little bit lower and see, wait, what did I do? 6 link, sorry. And I would do the same thing here. I'm gonna leave the trade links in the description on some of the harder items, and I know there's one that is shock and increase, I have it on my gloves. It's a mod that every shocked enemy, you have a higher chance of critical strike. And because we have skitter bots, they're always gonna shock your enemies. But we can take a look at that on the gearing section also. And as always, I have an empty suffix. That means I can craft something important here. So you can see here 3 prefixes and 2 suffixes. We can craft it very simple, and a high life roll and high everything else. If they're too cheap, then you write in a higher number here, and voila, it's still very cheap, and you even get the chaos resistance here, which is extremely good. But again, do we want an armor piece here? Because then it's gonna be hard to use the chromatics to change the colors and everything. So you have to weigh that up with everything else. And oh, there's the mod, by the way. Increase critical strike chance against shocked enemies. Very good to help you along. It can go all the way up to 60. So this one is extremely important, I think, for the gloves. It's not that expensive, honestly. You could pick this one up, I guess, but it's corrupted, which means that you cannot, well, you can change the links, but it's gonna be well over what they're actually worth, and it would not be worth it in the end. So other things we just want to combine, like jewelry. I'm just gonna leave the link in the description, because there's a lot of mods like this. I actually have a trade open, so let's see here. As you can see here, I have a lot of stats, and I have a live search because they can be a little bit expensive. Now I put very low number on it, so it's only 5 chaos and stuff like that. But all of this, you need to be smart about this, and if you want to make the best deals, you need to log into your account and activate live search and just buy upgrades as you go along, because the best prices are always going to be the one that you are getting instantly by the live search. So they're going to pop up as soon as someone posts something you need. They're going to pop up and they're going to make a beeping sound, and you tap out of the game, or if you have a second screen, you just look over and then you buy it for a cheaper price. Same thing, if you don't want to spend too much money, then you put in the amount you want to spend right down here. But remember, resistance is capped out at 75. We want high life. We want open suffix on as many gear pieces as we can. We want the right colors on our gear. And we want a critical strike and everything like that. And obviously on our weapon, we want high either cold damage or fire damage percentage, and some flat damage also, which we'll talk about when we take a look at my gear. So that's all for this section. Let's go to the next. Here we have all the gear that I bought. I bought them in one sitting. That means that I have not done live searches on any of these items to better simulate how a normal person would actually buy their gear. But I highly recommend to do live searches on PoE Trade or on the official Path of Exile trade site, which are in the description below. And you may even use my trade links for these, and just manipulate whatever you need in the end. But if you buy all the gear at once, it's a little bit hard to balance the resistance and stuff like that. So my gear is by no means optimized at all. So it's better, you're probably gonna end up with better pieces than I did. So the Perendus coins, right next to it is how many chaos I spend on that specific item, and it adds up to all 91 chaos here at the end. That does not include the chromatics, and it does not include linking the items. So some of them came linked already, so I didn't, and some of them I did not need to link at all. So this one obviously I bought corrupted, and it was 6 link, because corrupted 6 links are very inexpensive, so I highly recommend doing that. Other things I did not include right now is the craft I put on them. It's very cheap craft. It's the one alchemy craft on most of these items, and the most expensive one was the trigger sucker spell, which you don't really need. I am lazy, so I just wanted everything automated, which we'll talk about in the gem section. But it cost 3 chaos. So with 91 chaos spent on this, plus the spending on all the other currency to make this happen, I would say there is a maximum of 20 more chaos. So we are well below the 1 exalted limit. But let's not just take a look at each gear piece here. We have the 6 link body armor, because we have these. Just type in the colors into the search section you need and see if someone has it, because corrupted cannot change colors unless you use really a lot of Val orbs together with your chromatics, so I would not recommend that. All you're looking for is life and some resistance. I also had dexterity, because we're starving a little bit on that. Not a necessary stat though. On our gloves, like we talked about earlier, is high life, resistance, which is tied to the, if we type here, is tied to the increased critical strike chance against shocked enemies, so you get that as 1 stat. So you can still, even though it looks like we have all the 6 affixes on our item, it's still only 5, so we can craft another one. So these were really good buy. Same thing here, we want movement speed on our boots, high life, and some strength. We're also starving on strength a little bit, probably more on strength than dexterity, so I decided to go here. And also did my lab and got that one enchant on them, which is probably pretty useless. I went with a shield instead of 2 one-handers. I did have 2 one-handers in the beginning, but then I realized how much am I actually losing by taking off one of them, and it turns out it was very negligible, and getting that 100 extra maximum life plus some block, even though that our acrobatics takes away some block, it still increased our survivability by quite a lot. So I highly recommend that. For our helmet, same thing here, life, resistant, and yeah, and our belt is kind of key here. We want increased cooldown recovery speed. This one could be the most expensive piece you have to buy. You might want to set up a live search for this item because people are buying up. You want 14% increased cooldown recovery speed to make it work. 14 or above. It's a breakpoint which I talk about in one of my other videos, which will probably link in the end of this video. And yeah. And for our dagger, we want to run a dagger, not a wand, because Cyclone cannot use wands, so we need a dagger. Also, we get increased global critical strike chance. That's an implicit there, which is very nice. I could probably get a much better wand than this one, but it had the spell damage, fire damage to spells, and increased attack speed, which is all really good items. I would love critical strike chance to spells or something like that also on this item, but because it has an open suffix, I could craft the trigger sacred spell when you use a skill, which means that I'm gonna just use my normal skills and it's gonna trigger my wave of conviction and flammability curse by itself. I don't need to manually debuff things. And I also bought a wise oak for 6 chaos. It's very inexpensive. I did not count these in because these are things you pick up just from any vendor or through leveling and stuff like that. But I have Eternal Life Flask, which is half of it is an instant and removes bleeding. You always want bleeding on the Life Flask because when you see the life go down, you want to hit that really fast. And you have the freeze. And on the Diamond Flask is very important because you get critical strike chance, and you have curse, and we have movement speed in the end here. I would not change anything here, and this is a really good starting point until you get your Cospri Malices. So let's go to the next. Oh, I almost forgot that I have one more row of things here. Epigon is obviously the most essential thing into this build because it gives us this mod. Your hits can be evaded by blinding enemies. Your hits can't be evaded by blinded enemies. And together with where is the Flesh and Stone? It's over there, yeah. Flesh and Stone, if you're in sand stance, you are gonna blind enemies. That means we are always gonna have 100% accuracy where Cyclone is concerned. So it's extremely good mod, and it also gives us penetration because we're converting all our cold damage into fire damage through Avatar of Fire and our cold to fire support. So extremely important to have this one, and it's super cheap, and you can also allocate Snowforge on this, which is also extremely cheap to put in as an anointment. Rings. We want the life, resistance, open suffix if it can, and I always have one ring with fire damage leech as life. They're not very expensive either, so that means we take care of all our life leech because we're hitting for so much and so fast. It's just gonna keep us at max health most of the time. And for our jewels, we want a lot of stats here. The unique jewel we want is because we want that extra frostbolt, because when we shoot out frostbolts, our Ice Nova is going to proc twice from it. That means it's going to shoot out 2 Ice Novas for each proc of our cast and crit. So extremely important that we have enough of those frostbolts activated. So that means we have 2 extra here plus the one we already have. That means we have 3 frostbolts shooting out, and we're gonna shoot out frostbolts all the time, which means that we're gonna have a steady stream of frostbolts and a steady stream of ice novas proccing from those frostbolts. For our jewels, I would recommend increased maximum life on every single jewel, and I also will leave this link in the description to good jewels search, because there's a lot of mods here and it usually confuses people when it comes to this. So I just wrote down, or I made a trait search thing that you can just copy in or click on it, and it will take you to what I'm using right now. I think that is it. So now we can go to the next part. For our passive tree, we are gonna start from the assassin right here, and we're gonna talk about the ascendancy in a moment, but we just wanna pick up some extra damage here in the beginning. And if you wanna go down to increase maximum life here, that is also a big damage boost, or sorry, a survivability boost. Then we take the lower path here to get some extra critical strike chance, because we need that, of course. Attack damage and stuff like that. Then I would recommend to path down here, and if you're early, you would probably not want to pick up that many jewel sockets, because until you actually have the jewels for it. Normally jewels are the last thing I'm buying, except this frozen trail. I always put it here. It does not need to be allocated, the 40 intelligence, it just needs to be inside the circle, and there is 40 inside this circle, so don't worry about that. Then I would path down to acrobatics and face acrobatics. It's gonna help a lot with your survivability, and I would probably stop about there and pick up these later. So I would start pathing here, take some extra survivability on the way, and I would path into this. If you are not allocating Snowforge as your anointment, which you should probably on your amulet, then I would path in here and just pick up everything, because it does not matter if we have fire damage or cold damage, because we're converting both, so both of them are gonna boost our damage in the end. If you're not converting it to fire, that means only cold damage is gonna apply to this. So this one is 50 extra damage, not only the 25 of one single element. Then I would path over here, take my nodes here. Obviously we want as many power charges as possible, so we want to pick up those as many as possible. And then I would take these nodes, because it's great, it's pathing through the maximum life here, and some extra damage is always nice, and also resistance to help you along with getting resistance cap. And because we are using the fire version, we want to get avatar fire as fast as possible, so that's why we pathed here in before taking some of the other nodes. And so we can convert that extra 50%, so it's half from avatar fire and the other half from cold to fire conversion from your gems. And then we just want to pick up some extra damage depending on how glass cannon you want to be, and some extra life, and then just path down to pick up some jewel nodes here, some power charge. And I would take this section absolutely as the last one, when you have taken all of these and all the other ones we have skipped, like here and here. Then I would start pathing up into this section, and that is pretty much it for the normal passive tree. But for the ascendancies, to make this work, I did it a little bit wrong when I leveled. I took opportunistic. I would probably recommend to go unstable infusion and then deadly infusion, to guarantee that you have enough critical strike and also generation of power charges to make this build work really early level. And then I would put in opportunistic to get that extra movement speed, some extra damage for bosses and stuff like that, so very nice. And last but not least, Mistwalker, which help you with survivability, a lot of extra movement speed and clear speed, and you take no extra damage from critical strike while elusive, which is you basically have up all the time. So I highly recommend go through this section, then to opportunistic, and then finally the final one for Ubelab is Mistwalker. So there we have the passive tree and the ascendancy. Let's go to the next. For our gem links in our main setup, it's gonna be of course Cyclone to proc all our custom crit, and that means we need a custom crit support gem and also increase critical strike. These are essential ones, do not switch these out. And then of course we need Frostbolts because we need Frostbolt to shoot out, so our Ice Novas can proc from them, because then you get double the amount of damage if it procs from a Frostbolt. You know, it also make your Ice Novas a little bit ranged, which is an extra defensive layer. And then we have Cold to Fire support, which is turning all your damage together with Avatar of Fire over to fire damage, which is kind of great, because then we can take both cold damage and fire damage nodes wherever we can find them. For my weapon, I have Wave of Conviction to debuff the enemies with elemental resistance, and also I have Combustion again with is linked to this one, which means that it's gonna debuff them even more. And I also have Flammability, because if I cast Flammability on them, that means they're gonna take even more fire damage, and we're doing a lot of fire damage. So this one is purely for making sure that the debuffed enemy is not for damage per se, but Wave of Conviction does a decent amount of damage still. And it's just a debuff, and I have the trigger sucker spell when you use a skill in there, so I don't need to worry about. So every time I spin here, it's gonna activate. Not if I'm holding it in, but every time I click it. Or I can click any other skill and it will activate. For my helmet, I have Vortex to help me on bosses, to slow them down a little bit and do some extra boss damage. It's very great. Also, it's instant, so I can run around and activate, and it's gonna activate my trigger sucker spell on top of that. So great way. Val Righteous Fire is gonna help me with some extra damage boost on bosses, so I activate it right before I'm getting into the boss, and obviously it's gonna take some life out of me, so I'm gonna hit the life flask right after that and then do some insane damage. Arcane Surge is gonna activate because of my Vortex here. Don't level it above 7. All my gems here are low level without or level 20 only, to better simulate your kind of thing, because I could get level 21 and 20 quality gems, which will boost my damage immensely, but that would not be very realistic for one exalted build. And it helps with Arcane Surge, helps with some extra damage, and more importantly also it keeps our mana up, which is very nice on some of those nasty mods which nerfs our mana. Increased duration support, which is both for basically everything in this link, and it's a nice. You don't need it if you are lacking slots here, then you do not need increased duration. It's just a quality of life thing. Then I don't need to activate it as often. For my Herald of Ash, as you can see here, I do have free slots here in my build for more gem links. I just haven't figured out where, because I'm gonna switch over to the more expensive right after this, so you can put in whatever you want here. Maybe another custom damage taken setup. We want Herald of Ash together with our Skitterbots and Flesh and Stone, and we also have Precision at a lower level to boost these are all the mana reservation thing. We use Herald of Ash because we're a fire build, and Overkill is gonna spread the burning damage, which is very nice for clear speed and extra damage. Flesh and Stone because of the Ephigon, and it's gonna give us 100% accuracy. Summon Skitterbots is gonna shield them, which is gonna boost our damage and also slow down the enemies, and more importantly it's gonna shock them, which is gonna greatly increase our damage and also activate the increased critical strike chance against shocked enemies from our gloves. Precision Same thing here, it's just an extra thing I had to bring up my increased critical strike chance a little bit more to 100. I think I'm at 99 or something like that. So not 100, but close enough for a budget build. And for my boots, I have a cost when damage taken with steel skin at a reasonable level. I ended up at 10 and 15 here, so it would activate. Make sure that nothing else is low level here, so it activates those. Dash together with second wind is my new favorite way of using. You can also use flame dash, of course, but I really like how dash is interacting, because even if you get slowed or anything like that, it's not gonna affect dash. It's still gonna be just as fast, or on bosses that do those nasty slow effects. When flame dash is gonna be extremely lethargic, this is just gonna be instantly, and you're gonna be able to move out of the way. So I recommend dash. You can use whatever you would like here though. Those are my gem links. Yeah, they've been pretty much optimized at this point, and I would not change a single thing. I would just find something else or something more to put in here. And obviously, if you have not a trigger wand, you might want to set up something like curse on hit setup with some kind of hit thing. Vortex is not a hit. Same thing goes for Wave of Conviction. I'm pretty sure it's not a hit either. I know Vortex is not, but I did not need to worry about that anyway because of how we have set these things up. So, for your Pantheons, I recommend going for the major gods is Soul of Lunaris if you upgrade it here fully, and Soul of Solaris. Obviously I've not upgraded anything, it's a new character and I just leveled it up and then wanted to release this as fast as possible. But these upgrades are very important, honestly, for survivability. Some of them are really good. Also, for the minor one, I always take Soul of Shakiri because it's immune to poison if you upgrade it, and some extra chaos damage reduction is very good for just the degen on the ground and stuff like that. And for the bandits, finally, is going with a Lyra. So we're helping Lyra to get some extra mana regen and elemental resistance and some critical strike multiplier, which is very nice for all these purposes. So we need all those stats, but you can also go for kill them all. It's 50-50. I would not say no to 2 extra passive points at this point. It's probably more important to have 2 extra passive points at the end game than in the beginning when you're doing a 1 exalted challenge. So there we have it. This was my 1 exalted fire version of Cast and Crit Ice Nova Frostbolt. I hope you enjoyed this build guide, and I hope I didn't miss too many things. I will leave some extra links at the end of this video, so you guys can click them right after I'm done talking. And as always, thank you for your immense support by subscribing to me and putting a like on this video and share it with your friends. Have an awesome day, everyone.